For as long as I can remember, I've wanted to make movies. For 2 years now, I've been putting my money where my mouth is on that goal. It's hard finding the right words to explain just what this whole project even is, but I'm going to try with this video. I want to give a look behind the curtain to share just what's been going on with this thing. I still have a long way to go, and so far, the process has been erratic, exhausting, and probably way more complicated than it needs to be. But more than all of that, it's me. It all started in 2022 when my close friend Michaela sent me this drawing by the artist Heresvix from Twitter. It showed an anthropomorphized version of Laika, the real dog that the Soviets sent to space in the 1950s. To keep it brief, Laika was a stray dog that the Soviet Union's space program put onto Sputnik 2, the second satellite ever launched. There was no way to bring her back alive though, partly since the mission was being rushed for the 40th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. She died in about 6 hours when her craft overheated because of a thermal control malfunction. Her story is notoriously tragic, and this art reflected that well. For those unaware, anthropomorphizing, or anthro for short, means she was given more human-like characteristics. Think of movies like Zootopia or Robin Hood, or Netflix shows like BoJack Horseman and Beastars for examples of how this has been done before. As someone who's been into this type of media for years, it stuck with me. Within days, I realized this would make a great concept for an animated movie. I was pretty shocked to find out a film about this didn't already exist, so I saw an opportunity to stake my claim. I started brainstorming in my notes, researching the real events, and figuring out what direction I'd take it all in. Movies like Apollo 13, When the Wind Blows, and The Iron Giant seemed like the best inspirations to take at the time. An early version of the story involved Laika being a Soviet Air Force pilot who had combat experience in both Korea and Vietnam. We would have seen her doodling rocket ships in school notebooks as a pup, and watched her age into an experienced fighter before her space mission. A good chunk of the runtime would have focused on her time inside Sputnik 2, since I used to think it took Laika 6 days to die up there in real life. Throughout the year, I treated this story as more of a side project to some other things I had going on at the time. Come 2023, though, and I started giving the writing my full attention. By now, I had a vision for this thing. A rough, storyboarded version of the whole script from start to finish, complete with voice acting, sound effects, and music. I wanted the best proof of concept I could make, and you can't prove the concept much more thoroughly than that. I nicknamed this plan Project Stardog. I also wanted the story and themes to honor the real people and events, while trying to predict how Laika's new anthro status would affect and change them. To simplify, themes of betrayal, willful ignorance, and exploitation came into play. Ideas about how subservience to the state can rob you of your humanity, and existential dread about our small place in the universe also helped me flesh things out better. Most of the notes I took were during work, where I carried notebooks around in my vest to jot down any ideas that came to me during the day. Large swaths of the plot and characterization were literally written on the job. When I thought the movie's story was far enough along, I bought this book, Your First Screenplay by Adam Fisk, to format it into a real script. By May, the first 2 drafts were finished. I sketched some concept art here and there, and I had a few friends read and critique what I had. I tried taking their advice with tweaks and changes as they came. In hindsight, the script wasn't nearly as set in stone as I thought it was yet, but that didn't stop me from kicking off the single biggest artistic undertaking of my life. A big thing I want to emphasize in this video is just how, to put it mildly, psychotic my methods have been so far. When the project officially launched on November 3rd, I naively expected to have all the storyboards done within a year. In fact, I planned for the fully animated, finished film to be released on November 3rd, 2027, the 70th anniversary of the real Laika's launch. But it didn't take long to realize that was completely unfeasible, so I decided having this big storyboard reel finished by then would be more realistic. I had been drawing animals for almost a decade at that point, especially anthro ones, so I did have something of an advantage. I tried sketching model sheets and references for myself, mimicking what I could remember other animated movies doing for their productions. More concept art and practice studies were sprinkled in too. The actual storyboards began on November 17th, and right from the get-go, complications began. For reasons I'll get into later, I wanted these boards to look as polished and consistent as they could, where characters and backgrounds would stay exactly the same size and shape from frame to frame. That wasn't going to happen if I drew it all in one continuous run. I'm just not that type of artist. So what I came up with was a process where I'd start with rough sketch versions of the scene as practice. If this were a real movie, the storyboards would probably look more like this. Then, I'd take a separate paper and make something I called guide sketches. Basically, I'd trace over these rough sketch versions and fix the shapes, anatomy, and backgrounds as I went. I would sharpen certain things and try to give more definition to details I skimped out on. When someone or something moved, I'd prepare the movement on these guide sketches too. They were useful for keeping things in place the way I wanted, and for making sure characters' heads, arms, eyes, etc. would stay consistent. Backgrounds especially benefited in my opinion. If I had a shot that lasted multiple frames, sometimes I'd take the first polished frame of it, trace over its background with a guide sketch, and then trace over that guide sketch for the rest of the frames in that shot before the next camera cut. Other times, I'd start by drawing a background in its entirety on a guide sketch, and then retracing that for every polished frame of the shot so nothing would jump around too much. And yes, that meant I really was drawing the same background again and again, down to the exact detail, for entire scenes on end. I did the same process for characters a lot of the time too, even minor background ones. I was effectively drawing entire scenes not once, not twice, but 3 times through these steps. It's partly why I was scrambling to have this opening scene fully drawn in time for New Year's Eve, so I could have a cleanish slate going into 2024. Whenever I finished a scene, I would scan the polished frames into my laptop, then put them into Photoshop to separate them all into individual frames. I had to use a homemade template to do it, where it felt like I was sort of carving all these drawings out. It allowed me to make sure the backgrounds and characters all stayed consistent, and if I forgot a pencil stroke here and there, I could use Photoshop's brush tool to fill it in. If anything shifted around too much, I could nudge the frame around to make it look a little smoother. Like most steps in the process, it was incredibly monotonous, annoying, and time-consuming. For editing, I used CapCut to put all these frames together in a sequence, and used freesound.org for the whole sound design. For music, I used a website called Beepbox, where you compose songs by placing notes into a timeline with a bunch of different instrument tones. Usually, this site's used to create 8-bit and 16-bit sounding chiptune songs, like the kind of thing that would have been on the NES, the Super Nintendo, or the Sega Genesis back in the day. But if you fiddle with the settings enough, you can get tones that sound like synthesizers or keyboards. It was like the poor man's version of FL Studio, but for now, it did the job. In about 6 days, I had my first rough cut of the opening edited in CapCut with placeholder music added in. Voice actors were still a ways off, so for dialogue, I made subtitles as a temporary substitute. It was exciting to have real proof I could do this, and I carried that momentum into the next scene, which I had ready in a few more weeks. I seem to be on a roll already. The first big turning point in my process came with the steel factory scene. I knew the backgrounds were going to be complex here, and those pencil and paper methods weren't going to cut it this time, especially not for the opening pan-down shot I had in mind. So here's where things go from convoluted to what the actual hell is wrong with you. I took to SketchUp, a 3D modeling program I'd been using casually for years, to build the first of many digital sets. If memory serves, I didn't stick too close to my references for what real Soviet steel factories looked like, so a lot of the complexities were my own fault. Once I got far enough, I added a camera motion into the model, screen recorded it with QuickTime Player, and then paused at various points in the recording to take 5 screenshots from it. I put these into my template for Photoshop, which I'd already been using to print out copies for my polished frames. I printed the screenshots and drew characters over top of them with guide sketches as I went. At first, I had no intention of using this beyond the establishing shot. I figured once I got past that, I'd be okay to do the rest with pencil and paper again. But of course, I ended up doing it for almost the entire scene. For hours on end, I was printing out page after page of what I called background guides with the SketchUp screenshots on them. I would draw the characters first, using the whole rough draft and guide sketch process every time, and then I'd overlay those on top of the background guides, tracing over the SketchUp model I designed to draw a sort of composite image. It worked almost like a green screen effect. At times, I would literally hold the paper up against the screen of my laptop to figure out how things would look once I printed them. One problem I ran into a lot was holding all of these papers in place from session to session. By now, I was packing a whole stash of supplies in a backpack that I'd take to work with me, so I could draw this scene on my breaks. I'm talking a portable easel, my tracing light, multiple folders full of papers, a clipboard, and so on. If first break ended before I could finish drawing a frame, I'd have to put everything away in my bag until second break to bring all that back out. But when that happened, and happened often, I should say, it was hard to realign everything exactly how I had it before, which is why sometimes the backgrounds have this jittery movement to them. I was always anxious about how noticeable that might be during the final cut. Side note, you can imagine how many heads this turned when people saw me doing all this in the break rooms. A lot of times, my coworkers still wonder what the hell I'm doing, and on some days, their guess is as good as mine. I also can't tell you how many times I came back late from break because of things like this. My managers wouldn't let me hear the end of that one for a while. Making the steel factory scene this way was about as tedious as you're probably imagining. It was one of the hardest art jobs I'd ever done up to that point. The fact that I had a really bad flu at the time didn't help, which kept me at home from work for days on end. By the time it was finally finished, I felt terrible, but I was excited to have new methods for further scenes. A typical day's routine would go like this. Wake up at 5:45 a.m., do some project work for about half an hour before heading into work, use first and second break to get more done, come home, and then do what I can there until about 9:30 p.m. or so, where I'd go to bed and start the cycle over the next day. The next few scenes all loosely followed that with the same basic pattern. Sketch the rough drafts, design SketchUp models as a set of sorts, use guide sketches to draw characters in, and then trace over the printed SketchUp screenshots for all the backgrounds. The way I saw it, I was saving time by not having to figure out how backgrounds should look when the camera moves, or what size to make the buildings and such. Not to mention, I was never that good with perspective, so having 3D models almost felt like using a cheat sheet for that. That gave me some freedom to experiment with cinematography that I liked, but a part of me knew this probably wasn't sustainable. By the time I got to the scene where Laika is first recruited, I'd had enough with this convoluted mess of a system. Every day, I got more and more anxious about just how long this was taking. I needed a faster way. So for the next scene, I tried a new method of rough drafts, where I'd draw them completely digitally for a change. I'd put all the SketchUp screenshots into my template in Photoshop, and then draw the characters over top of them with my computer mouse. That way, I could save paper by sort of combining the rough draft, background guide, and guide sketch steps all into one. Today, drawing characters digitally isn't a big problem for me, but back then, I was insistent on always sketching a character on paper before making a digital version. I actively avoided doing this sooner because I wasn't that good at drawing digitally without a paper sketch. Characters always came out wonky and awkward, and my usual art senses always got thrown off. But this time, I was desperate to improve my process. When I finished drawing Laika and Yazdovsky in Photoshop for this part, I printed these sheets out with these characters on them for a change, and just traced those directly onto the polished sheets. The effect looked pretty good, although consistently drawing that many windows over and over again was pretty painful. This seemed to be working out. But then, during the making of the briefing scene, another giant turning point in the project was about to take hold. For Project Stardog's 1-year anniversary, I wanted to make a big, voice-acted demo reel of all the scenes I had so far. Originally, I didn't plan on doing this until way later, but the anniversary element made the opportunity too good to miss. I briefly browsed some voice actresses for Laika as early as July, but by October, I fully committed to it. One thing I kept going back and forth on was whether to give every character a Russian accent or not. I thought that might feel more authentic, since having everyone talk like an American while they're in the Soviet Union might be too jarring.
Did you invite them?
No.
Ask Barry if he invited the bishops.
Don't give me orders. Ask Barry if he invited the bishops.
But I worried a caveat like that might limit my options for voice actors too much. Plus, I wasn't sure how an audience might respond to it. It wasn't until I saw The Secret War, a short from Love, Death, and Robots, that I decided everyone having the accent was the way to go.
Have you ever seen a cool barrel that big, Lieutenant?
Never. Pagodin! Sir! Time to earn your pay.
Of course, comrade.
A while back, before I started the project, one of my friends mentioned a website called Casting Call Club for this kind of talent search. So I made an account there and opened roles for the 5 biggest characters in the movie. I was pretty anxious about how this might go, since I had no presence on this website at all until now. I worried it might even look suspicious, or that it could be days before anyone responds. But within just a few hours, I already had 2 auditions from someone. That alone would have felt like a stroke of luck to me, but then they just kept coming and coming. Auditions poured into my inbox, and within a week, I had almost 50 submissions to pick from. It quickly went from feeling surreal to feeling absolutely interdimensional, if that makes sense. Hearing people read lines that I myself wrote felt so alien to me, and to this day, I'm still a little shy to actually play back voice clips like these. For the first time in the project's run, I felt overwhelmed in a positive way. I legitimately took it as a sign from God. The total number of auditions came out to 79, which is still just absolutely bonkers to me. There were so many good voice actors and actresses that I didn't want to say no to, and narrowing things down felt like a battle in of itself. Some sacrifices had to be made, but in the end, I got a voice cast assigned to the main 5. Liv Ravenshaw, who went by Liv Smith at the time, Tyler Pasquarella, Brennan Michael, Andrew Winson, and Steven Jobson became the first official outside collaborators on Project Stardog. Some of them opted to self-direct their lines, while others were open to live directing sessions over Discord. Once negotiations passed, my first ever live directing session came with Tyler. He couldn't have been better to work with, and he was incredibly cooperative and understanding of the fact that I'd never done this before. It felt otherworldly to be doing this, but in the end, I think we made the best of it. More directing sessions followed, and my heart never ceased to flutter like hell during them all. As happy and excited as I was, that November 3rd deadline still loomed, and I got increasingly nervous about when some actors would have their lines ready. I never pressured them, since I know life happens and such, but the anxiety was immense. Things were moving so fast, yet so slow at the same time. The day of the anniversary came, and I was still nowhere near done editing the reel yet. I was supposed to go to work that day, and at first, I thought I could just come in a few hours late and get this ready. Turns out, I had to take the whole day off. I was furiously trying to put this thing together in time, and even then, I only had it uploaded to YouTube by around 11:30 p.m. at night, a lot later than I would ever stay up on a work night normally. It was exhausting and stressful, but at the same time, probably the most rewarding thing I'd ever made up to that point. For the first time, I got an extended window into what this project was going to be someday. I could finally see how these scenes would flow together in a continuous narrative. It's hard to even convey with words just how ecstatic and satisfied I felt that day. I was on top of the world. Unfortunately, the euphoria didn't last long. I fell into a dark place mentally, which nearly stopped my workflow dead in its tracks for the longest time. The re-election of Donald Trump was the spark that set it off. This wave of dread, anger, and resentment came over me, watching some of the worst people in the country now become its rulers. It felt like I was watching the collapse of an empire in real time. But there were other things already piling up all around that, too. Every day, social media spread updates on the genocide happening in Gaza, and how my government was actively aiding and abetting it. I'd rarely ever seen dead bodies on the internet before, but in 2024, I lost count of how many I'd seen. My day job was suffocating us with more mandatory overtime for the holidays than usual. The car that I carpooled to work with was falling apart, and a Christmas-themed art project I was excited for completely fell through. Not to mention the rise of AI and its adoption by every corporation under the sun gave me a full-blown existential crisis more than once. And worst of all, one of my closest coworker friends was having serious suicidal thoughts that I was actively trying to intervene in. It felt like everywhere I went, something new would come to demoralize me. All of these things coming down all at the same time made it feel like my drive to get this project done was dying. A scene I started working on in October took until early February to finish drawing, and even then, it took me months longer to actually edit the damn thing. I was an absolute wreck with depression, burnout, alienation, and whatever else you would call it. But there were signs of hope. This year, I finally learned how to use FL Studio to make the project's soundtrack. I wasn't satisfied with Beepbox's limitations anymore, and I'd always planned on upgrading to this at some point. It was an absolute mind screw to figure out at first, but once I got the hang of the program, the results were exactly what I hoped they'd be. Composing the music used to be my least favorite part of the whole process, but thanks to FL Studio, it's flipped into possibly my favorite part now. I started taking antidepressants around this time, which helped a little, and I finally bought the very first car I could call my own. With so many terrible things happening all around me, I needed to make reasons to claw my way out of this depression one way or another. I tried picking up the pieces as I went, spending weeks reconfiguring my whole approach to the project. It felt like my entire work ethic needed an overhaul. I made my own project planner with a to-do list of goals to aim for on most days. I mapped out my schedule for the rest of the scenes left to make, reorganized all the project's files and assets to not be a scattered mess anymore, and I streamed my art process relentlessly. That seemed to be helping, but then the scene with Laika's first test hit. I expected to have this done within a month, maybe 2 at most. So of course, it took over 4. I wasn't prepared for just how complicated this would be to work on with all the moving camera shots, keeping everyone's size and position consistent, and drawing in so many details with 4 characters on screen at once. That might not sound like much, especially to an animation veteran, but for someone like me, it was absolute hell on earth. Work sessions on this scene were grueling and plagued with burnout after burnout. It made the Steel Factory scene look quaint in comparison. This centrifuge scene had a profound impact on my approach to the project, which I'm still feeling the ripples of to this day. I realized something needed to drastically change if I wanted a hope in hell of finishing this by my deadline. If just the digital rough drafts took almost 3 months to make, how bad would it be for polished pencil sketches and all the problems they already pose on a good day? I did some experimenting in Photoshop, and although I was reluctant to do this, I found a way to mimic the pencil-drawn look digitally. It wasn't flawless, but it matched closely enough with the earlier scenes to make me think this was worth giving a try. Thanks to that, I got the polished frames finished within about 3 weeks, which would have been unfathomable with the pencil and paper route. So far, as I write this is the scene I'm the proudest of. Not just for all the technical aspects and everything that went into it, but because it finally forced me to come up with better, more efficient ways of building this project. Around this time, I also started to go back and re-edit the older scenes in order to fine-tune them more. I updated the music with FL Studio, tightened up some of the editing, did my best to make the sound mixing a little more balanced, and tried my best to make the sound design more rich and detailed. Take a look at these comparisons and see if I succeeded or not.
Держите крепко. Кто сейчас упадет? Now, we've turned it into our reality. This is an extension of the revolution itself. Yet those who hold it in the highest regard act as if this is its downfall. Now, we've turned it into our reality. This is an extension of the revolution itself. Yet those who hold it in the highest regard act as if this is its downfall.
My cousin lives in East Germany. Says camping in the hives is lovely this time of year.
We've entered a new age.
The other big thing this scene made me realize was that if I want this project to be finished by my deadline, I can't keep going at it by myself. I need other artists to help push this thing to its full potential. That brings us to today, where I'm still in the process of working all of this out and putting out a talent search for anybody able to assist it. I don't know how much money I can put towards it yet, or what kinds of scheduling I can expect out of it, but I'm going to do what I have to do to get everything back on track. You might have been wondering why I spend so much time making all of this look so polished. Storyboards on real movies aren't required to look so clean or detailed, although some certainly are. Something more rough and quick would do just fine, right? Especially for an amateur like me who'd never done something like this before. For a brief stretch of time in the beginning, I thought the same thing. The short version? I did it as a sort of insurance. As much as I believe in this project and the story it has to tell, I have to be prepared in case it never goes any further than this. There's a real possibility that this storyboarded version will be the only one that ever exists, and if that happens, I at least want to say I tried my absolute best with it. If I did go with the rough, scratchy-looking style that some movies use on these, and it never went further then, I'd spend the rest of my life wondering if things could have been different if I spent more time on them. Maybe my boards weren't appealing enough to anybody who could have brought the finished film to life. But here in reality, if that outcome still happens, I'll at least know it wasn't because the art looked low effort. I'll be able to say I did my best in ways other people with my level of professional experience, that is to say absolutely none, might not have been able to. The same applies to the sound design, the music, the editing, and so forth. Also, even if this does take off, there's always a risk of studio meddling that turns this movie into something I never intended. Filmmakers with a lot more prestige than me have been down that road before. So in case that happens, I'll still have a version of the movie that represents my vision, even if it has to be in a rougher state. On some level, I treat every stage of production as if it were for the finished film, because there's always a chance that it could be just that. In almost every way imaginable, I've been humbled. Humbled in bad ways because of all the stupid mistakes and missed opportunities I made, especially with time management, but humbled in good ways because I've seen just how many people my story has already resonated with. A lot of my voice cast has expressed how much they loved the script, and how much the story engaged them. I don't say this to brag, but to express why I can't ever give up. One of them even said that out of all the projects they've been in, this one was his favorite, and he made me promise to see this thing through to the end. I sure didn't have to hear that twice. I hope this video did a good enough job explaining what goes on under the hood of this project, and I hope I'm able to bring you the new scenes as often as I can. although I'm really gonna have to play the long game here. It's a game I'm willing to play if it means bringing you the full story of Laika in due time. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourselves. Oh, and for anybody wondering why I don't just use AI for any of this,
Pick it up. Pick it up.